Hey friends! I'm back with my week 21 update, and this week has been a lot. First off, this last week was election week, and enough said there. Secondly, this week, I haven't been like uncomfortable yet. I haven't been like super comfortable either when sleeping because I'm used to, first off, I flop around like a marlin. My husband and I have always called it marlining whenever you flop around in bed, because I have a tendency to like really flop. Like I don't just roll, I like flop around and stuff. So we call it marlining because like when you catch a marlin, that's kind of what they look like when they fight back. Anyway, I obviously for a long time now have not been sleeping on my back because I keep getting differing opinions on when it is no longer safe to sleep on your back. And so I've been erring on the side of caution and just not sleeping on my back at all pretty much since I found out I was pregnant, which is overly cautious for sure, but the later I get into my pregnancy, the less safe it becomes. So it's not like I'm gonna start now. And as a result, I'm having a lot of back pain when I sleep because my back wants to be cradled against something, and when you're laying on your side, your back is just kind of in the air. So this last week, it all just kind of caught up to me, and I've been sleeping like garbage. I've been flopping around way more than usual, which usually I'm already pretty active when I'm supposed to be sleeping. But it's been really, really bad to the point that I've been spending, I think I spent 2 nights this week sleeping on the couch, because on the couch somehow I'm a little more comfortable. I don't know if it's the firmness of the couch or the shape, I have no idea. Maybe it's because on the couch I have a place where even on my side I can kind of rest my back. That's probably what it is, to be honest, because we have a sleep number bed. So I can make the bed firmer or softer or whatever, but nothing seems to be helping me get comfortable in bed. So I did spend a couple nights this week sleeping on the couch. It wasn't perfect, but it helped. And there was also at least one night where my husband gave up on sleeping next to me in bed, and he came out here to sleep on the couch because I was flopping around so much that he couldn't rest, which totally understandable. So that's a lot. And then I've also been really, really weepy this month, or this week rather, more than usual, because I am uncomfortable, I am overtired. I feel like there's not a single way or place where I can sit or lie and be any bit of comfortable. And then all I can think is, oh my gosh, and there's still 19 to 21 more weeks where I'm only going to get bigger and hence more uncomfortable. So that's overwhelming, and I can't emphasize enough how thrilled I am to be in this position, to be in this back pain, because this back pain means that I am carrying our daughter, and that's all I've wanted for years. But it is fair to say that nobody wants to be in pain. Nobody wants to be exhausted because they're in so much pain that they can't sleep. And so I think it's fair to say that this is one thing I could do without. And it doesn't make me any less grateful for the position that I'm in. It's just not a very fun aspect of it. It just is what it is. We did get results for our scan, which I think last time I spoke to you guys, I told you that we'd just done a repeat of our anatomy scan. So they had me come in before I was even 18 weeks, which felt way too early. Then they had me come in just before I was 20 weeks, which should have been, you know, better, but the later, the better you get pictures typically. And in this scan, this second scan, they did actualize a lot more things, but they didn't get to see everything that they needed. So once again, I'm going back in to complete the anatomy scan. That's happening at some point next week. So in the next update video, hopefully I'll have the good news that not only is everything great, but also that they got to see everything, and so the anatomy scan portion of the pregnancy is over and done with stellar results. That's what I want to be able to tell you guys, and hopefully that is exactly what I'll be telling you guys. What else happened? I forgot to mention to you guys, I saw my OB last week, and I did address with her the fact that, surprise, you are not going to be here on my due date, so what's the plan with that? And she was kind of surprised, as if, I mean, I don't know. Obviously, she has her own life, and I'm sure I would, because of who I am as a person, I would be checking and making sure that I don't have any conflicts before I go and I plan a vacation or whatever. But she apparently didn't think to do that, or it didn't occur to her, or she has her own life, and so work is work and somebody else will handle it. Long story short, she was very nice about it, but she basically offered to set me up with a different doctor, and I said, no, I don't want that. On the contrary, I want you. And you're making yourself unavailable to me, so now I want to know what happens next. And she's like, well, first off, you know, we did talk about from the very beginning how, like, I am going to be your doctor, but if I'm not on call, or if, like, whatever, then typically whoever's at the hospital will deliver you anyways. Which, now that I'm thinking about it, that almost means I was better off at my original practice when I had my son, because that was their policy also. But because that was their policy, they had us, you were basically forced to rotate through their entire staff so that you were at least familiar with everybody that could potentially be the one to deliver your baby. And the way that she's making it sound now, which I hadn't considered until now, because as far as I was concerned, as far as I was told, she was going to be the one. But she's kind of making it sound like it's a roll of a dice. It's very likely, actually, that the person that delivers your child is going to be somebody you've never met. And that was true even before I booked my vacation, was basically the way that was the conclusion that we came to. So that is what it is. And she said, well, you know, I'm going to be back actually on your due date. I will be gone for the week and a half leading up to your due date, though. So let's just manifest that you make it to term, and then I'll be here to deliver you. And if you come earlier, or if the baby decides to come earlier, then it won't be me, but it was probably not going to be me anyways, based on what we talked about, etc. So either way, you're in good hands, and it's going to be fine. So, again, it is what it is. I don't know what I was expecting her to do or say. Her stuff's in the books. My due date is not going to shift. So it just is what it is. Hopefully she's here. But even if she is, it still might not be her. What can we do? So what I've decided to do, to be a little more proactive and not just like sit twiddling my thumbs and waiting for the universe, is I'm trying to see if there's a way that my insurance will cover a doula. It's very unlikely, but the thing about having a doula is that then no matter what doctor I end up with at the hospital, I know for certain that I have somebody on my birth team that I know, that I am comfortable with, that knows what I want out of my birth experience, and that is prepared to advocate for me. Even if my doctor is not there. So because I could spend, and that was my plan, to spend the whole 9 or 10 months just really driving the point home of exactly what I want, exactly what I'm comfortable with, exactly what feels safe to me. And that way, by the time I'm in labor, my doctor knows me and knows what I want and knows what I'm willing to compromise on and what I'm not. And so I could feel safe going into that environment, knowing that not only does she have the expertise of being a doctor, but she also has the experience of me and knowing what I'm okay with. And so when the time comes and I have to focus on labor, I don't have to worry or be focused on also advocating for myself or for my child. So it's a long shot because my insurance is garbage. And I don't know, even if your insurance is not garbage, how likely it is for a doula to be covered, because a doula is not a medical necessity. But that's the route that I'm hoping to take. So we'll see how that works out. I've put out some feelers in the community to see if anybody knows anything about this, because I guess the easiest thing would be to just call the insurance and ask them, and I probably will end up doing that at some point in the next week. But I figure if somebody that I know locally already has experience in this and maybe could even recommend somebody or tell me, whatever you do, stay away from this person because I used her and I had a bad experience, then that's even more helpful than just calling the insurance. So all that to say that that's something that I'm pursuing and hopefully will come to fruition, but I'm not super optimistic about it because the likelihood of it being covered is super, super low as far as what I understand. And the last thing that happened this week that had me really upset is that I'm somebody that, like, I really hate asking for help, especially for things that I feel are, like, obvious. Like, I don't want to have to ask for somebody to take out the trash or for somebody to, like, pick up after their dishes after dinner or whatever, because it's like, these are things that seem obvious to me, that if the trash is full, it needs to go out. If you're done eating, you should clear the table and not have to wait for somebody else to come after you and do it for you, etc., etc. So when I see these things happening, it's not the healthiest thing, I'm sure, but will just stew over it and be like, wow, unbelievable, but then deal with it myself rather than have to remind somebody else that's capable of doing it themselves to do it. And in the spirit of that, there was something on the floor, I forget what, and it was something that anybody could have picked up 1,000 times, but it just kept getting walked over. So I bent over and picked it up. But when I bent over, I felt a really hard, like, snap almost in my abdomen, and it hurt. And it hurt for like a good 3 or 4 minutes, which doesn't seem like a long time, but it did hurt for a while. And then all I could think was, holy crap, I hurt the baby. Like, something that I just did must have hurt the baby. And that's why it hurt so much, and that's why it hurt for so long, because I stepped wrong, or like I bent wrong, or I did something where, like, I must have hurt the baby. And I was really, really upset all night thinking, oh my gosh, I hurt the baby. I'm sure at this point that she's fine. I hurt myself, probably, obviously. But I've felt her move 12 times since then, and, you know, I'm hoping and expecting that everything is just fine. But that was a big wake-up call that, like, I need to take it easy and I need to prioritize myself. House be damned, everybody else in the house be damned. Like, I can't keep doing everything on my own. Because it's not, if it were just for me, I wouldn't care. But I'm also growing a human right now, and it's a human that we've been trying to grow for the last 7 years, and I'll be damned if somebody not picking up their plate is going to be the reason that something happens to my baby. So, yeah, like I said, I've been really emotional this week. It's been a hard week, and it's done now. So we're moving on with fresh eyes and a fresh perspective, and all good things. So this week, let's go ahead and look at how baby girl's doing. So now, because we're in the 21st week, we're no longer measuring from head to booty. We're now measuring from head to toe. So it's going to look like she's had a crazy growth spurt, but actually it's just because now they're measuring the entire baby and not just like 2/3 of her. So this week, 21 weeks, she's as big as the Pixar ball, which, again, these Disney ones are just out of control absurd, because the Pixar ball on a DVD, on a, you know, movie theater screen, like, what Pixar ball? It's not a real thing. It's something you see in a cartoon. So how am I supposed to equate that to, like, oh, my baby is that size? Whatever. As big as a Pixar ball. She's also as big as the trolley from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. As big as a Kool-Aid Burst, but I am a child of the 90s, so I'm going to say as big as a Squeeze-It. I loved Squeeze-Its when I was a kid. That was my jam. It also says that she's as big as a basketball, and I feel like that can't possibly be correct, because I don't think even my uterus is the size of a basketball right now. Like, that just seems like a big leap. And then she's also as big as, like, a Go-Gurt. I don't understand in what country, on what planet, etc., a Go-Gurt and a basketball are comparable sizes. She's also as big as a large banana. So again, as always, all of these things feel wildly differently sized, shaped, proportioned to me. So I guess you could take all of them and kind of try to form an average to figure out how big baby is. But any one of these values on their own feels really misleading. It says that she's probably about 10.5 inches long, and she's probably weighing about 11 to 12.5 ounces. So 3/4 of a pound, that's pretty nuts. There goes the AC. Believe it or not, your fetus sleeps as much as a newborn. That's interesting, and that's something that I'm having to like remind myself too, because I also said last week that my OB was surprised I was feeling the baby at all. And then the app will sometimes be like, oh yeah, because all these kicks you're feeling and all these things, and it's like, I've definitely felt a ton of movement and a ton of different types of movement, but nothing that I would qualify as a kick quite yet. So I'm getting mixed signals, mixed messages from my OB saying you probably aren't feeling anything right now as far as I know, and then the app being like, oh my gosh, these kicks must be out of control, huh? And I feel like I'm somewhere in the middle. But I'm also on that forum that I keep mentioning where there's other women that are also due around the same time as me, give or take a couple weeks, and they are also talking about how, is it weird that I'm 21 weeks or 22 weeks or what have you, and I'm only occasionally feeling baby, or is it weird that I feel baby all the time for like a day and then maybe the next day I don't feel them at all? Like, is that weird? And I feel like both of those things are very much relatable, and when you go on those forums, all of the replies seem to be not weird at all. I'm on my 3rd pregnancy and I'm feeling the same thing right now, or you know, it depends on the baby, because with my first it was like that, but now with this one he's been kicking up a storm for X amount of weeks. So hearing these real life responses from real life people that it's fresh in their minds because they're about as pregnant as I am, it makes me feel like, okay, there's a range obviously, and I'm somewhere in that range, and that makes me feel a lot better. Baby's taste buds develop. She's swallowing her amniotic fluid a little bit every day to practice swallowing and digesting, etc. And the amniotic fluid's taste differs day to day depending on what you've eaten, which researchers have noticed, or they've, I guess, studied, that when babies are exposed to certain tastes in utero via the amniotic fluid, they're more eager to eat foods with those same tastes after birth. So like to try to eat vegetables, try to eat spicy stuff, try to eat sweet stuff, like try to eat a variety of things, because the more things baby is exposed to, the likelier it is that baby will have an easier time eating these things later, which I guess makes sense. I'm actually feeling her right now. She's being very, very wiggly at this moment. Baby's arms and legs are in proportion this week, and her movements are now much more coordinated. Liver and spleen have started working hard to produce blood cells, and bone marrow is now developed enough to help as well. So there's a lot of cool developments going on this week. And I think that the last thing that there is to show you guys is the bump. There's baby girl, 21 weeks. I don't feel too much rounder this week. On the contrary, it feels like everything's kind of collapsed and like lowered, which is interesting. But yeah, that's the bump at 21 weeks. And in the coming week, like I said, we have our appointment for the 3rd redo, or not the 3rd redo, the 2nd redo, but the 3rd attempt of our anatomy scan. So hopefully this will be, the 3rd time will be the charm. And in the coming week, I also have my ear doctor appointment. Tomorrow is the last day that I am doing the daily rubbing alcohol and vinegar drops. So far, so good, I think, anyways. And then there's like almost an entire week of no medication intervention at all before the doctor checks me out and sees whether or not it worked. So that appointment is actually really late in the day though, so very likely I'm not going to be discussing the outcome in my week 22 update, because I won't have had the update yet, I won't have had the appointment yet by the time I get around to recording it. But I'll let you guys know how the scan went, and of course how baby's developing and how I'm feeling, etc. So that's it for now. Oh, something else that's going on this week. I can't believe I almost forgot this. I made myself a pregnancy to-do list. Things that I want to do around the house, the registry, picking a name, etc. And there's as many things on the list as there are weeks left in the pregnancy. But realistically speaking, I should aim to do at least a couple of these a week, because I know that towards the end, I'm going to be much bigger. I'm going to be really tired. It's going to be much more complicated to get things done. And also, potentially, the baby's here before 40 weeks. So I have to take all these things into account. But I'm hoping this weekend to get started on this list. So I guess I'll update you guys on how that goes as well. So thank you guys so much once again for being here. Second half of the pregnancy is in full effect. And I was about to ask you guys for advice on being comfortable sleeping, considering that I can't sleep on my back. But baby will be here by the time you guys are watching this, so never mind. Thanks so much for watching the updates. Thanks so much for being here. And we'll chat again really, really soon. Bye.